Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to the FCS Football channel. And today we've got a pretty big one. We are doing my Premier League predictions for the 2021-22 season. Now before we get into this, of course these are my opinions and my opinions only. So if I have your team to get relegated or to underperform, so on and so forth, don't cry about it. It's only my opinion. So yeah. Furthermore, if you guys want to put your predictions down below, feel free. I would love to hear them, and obviously we can get a little bit of a discussion going down in the comments below. So let's get into my Premier League predictions. So coming in at rock bottom, it is the yo-yo club, Norwich City. Now, Norwich City, look, they've signed quite a lot of players. If I read it properly, we've got Rashia from Werder Bremen, as well as Josh Sargent from Werder Bremen. Both forwards primarily play centrally, especially Josh Sargent. Rashia can play off the flank, but I usually play behind the striker, which is obviously Josh Sargent. Signed players like Angus Gunn, Billy Gilmore on loan, Leeds Malou. Look, they've signed fairly well, but I think their sales, that's the disappointing part for me. Buendia, gone. Todd Cantwell is heavily linked to be leaving for Aston Villa, as did Buendia. We know we've seen this team before. We saw them get relegated 2 years ago on 21 points. Let's face it, this Norwich team, they do fantastically in the Championship, but come up and never really grasp the Premier League. It's different. You can't expect to come up and play the way Norwich often do. I think that will see them go bottom again and go down again. Look, my whole bottom four really are very interchangeable. So I don't necessarily think Norwich may come dead last, but I'm going to put them dead last, 20th. And look, while I praise them for some of their incomings, the outcomings, Buendia probably their best player. He is gone, and they have a very, very difficult start to the season. In the opening, 4 games, they've got Man City, Liverpool, Leicester and Arsenal in the opening 4 games. That is really, really difficult. And it's a recipe for disaster coming back into the top flight after the last time you was in there, you got absolutely decimated. It's going to be a hard campaign. It doesn't start easy for Norwich, and I can see them going down in bottom. In 19th, I have Watford. Of course, they came second in the Championship last year. Went down again pretty disappointingly 2 years ago. But look, I think they've signed fairly well. I like the signing of Danny Rose and Dennis from Club Brugge. Josh King, look, he disappointed at Everton. But for Bournemouth, he was pretty consistent for them. So, decent signings. But what I think will help Watford is their classic manager sacking plus then new manager bounce. And I think the season is set up for them to maybe even avoid relegation. They have a fairly decent start to their Premier League campaign, so they can kind of put themselves in a decent position if obviously they perform. Then they go into a December and October run where they play the best teams in the league between the 16th of October and the 4th of December. Playing teams like Man United, Chelsea, Leicester, Man City, Liverpool, so on and so forth. That's probably where we'll see the manager get sacked. And then that new manager will come in, have a lot easier run of games. But positively, they'll have that new manager bounce, which will lift them a little bit up the table, then return to normality where they're disappointing, will drop them down and probably see them just get relegated in 19th. However, like I said about Norwich, they could finish 18th, they could finish 20th, they could finish just outside the relegation zone. Next up is Brentford. Look, I like Brentford, I like the manager, I like the way they play. I do have my reservations whether they will be able to survive though. I like Ivan Toney, I think they've signed fairly well. Christoph Asia from Celtic, obviously a wonder kid on Football Manager. He looks fantastic. Frank Onyeka from Midtjylland, I don't know anything about him. And Johan Wissa from FC Lorient, I've used him on FM. That's all I know about them. But from what I can tell, Brentford got good recruitment. Obviously, they brought in players like Ollie Watkins, Saeed Benrahma before they went off to, well, especially Watkins succeed in the Premier League. Benrahma had a bit of an iffy season for West Ham. They signed Ivan Toney, of course, from Peterborough United, who set the Championship alight. They have good recruitment, so I believe these signings will be good and positive for Brentford. I don't know how they'll get on. I feel like they might have a similar fate to Norwich, where they try and play the right way, but they just can't in this division. But it'll be very interesting. And like I said about all the relegated teams, they could just about stay up because of who is in 17th, and that's Southampton. They're a mess. They are absolutely a mess. Danny Ings gone. Vestergaard looks like he's set to leave for Leicester City. That's their two best players gone. They don't have a real brilliant striker. They signed Adam Armstrong. Is he amazing? I'm not 100% sure. Theo Walcott signed permanently. Is he great? I think Southampton are in a mess. I like Ralph Hasenhüttl, but he weren't good enough last year, and Southampton weren't. On another year, they could have went down. They need to sign. They really, really need to sign some players and use the money they got for Danny Ings and they're going to get for Vestergaard and improve that squad, because at the moment, they are not good enough. And like I said, I can see him going down quite easily if they don't improve. I don't think the fans are really on side of Hasenhüttl at the moment. So fans back in the ground, if they don't start well, they don't sign new players. Obviously, losing Danny Ings was a fan favourite. All of these are pressures mounting on Hasenhüttl, and if he doesn't start well, like that, he'll be gone. I'm going to put him in 17th, but they could quite easily get relegated. In 16th, we have Crystal Palace, and Crystal Palace are an unknown, really, this season. I feel like, while I don't think their squad is great, and obviously they've lost some key players in Andros Townsend, Van Aanholt, Sacco, and Cahill, I think they've signed fairly well in bringing Gui from Chelsea, Anderson from Lyon, obviously impressed last year for Fulham on loan, Michael Elise and Conor Gallagher on loan from Chelsea. I think they're all good signings. However, my question marks is over the manager, Patrick Vieira. How good is he? We've seen him over in New York with New York City FC and with, was it Nice in Ligue 1? He looked alright. I wasn't blown away by him. So it's interesting to see how he's going to get on in the Premier League, taking over a Crystal Palace team that was well guided but well disciplined under Roy Hodgson. I think Vieira will look to play a bit more expansive, and be interesting to see if they can do that. Obviously, Frank de Boer tried that a few years ago and it didn't really work. So will Patrick Vieira be able to get the best out of this Crystal Palace group of players? And they've certainly got some great players. Wilfried Zaha, of course, being the diamond in that team. Can players like Michael Elise adapt to the Premier League? Can Vieira get this team playing good football? And that is why I'm putting them in 16th. I think there's so many questions around this Crystal Palace team. I can't put them much higher. Last year I had them getting relegated, so it's an improvement for Crystal Palace fans. I just find it too hard to really predict how Crystal Palace will get on, because, like I said, Vieira is such an unknown in the Premier League in terms of a manager. So 16th is Palace, and 15th I'm going to put Burnley. Burnley, they've hardly signed at all, but they haven't sold. And with Burnley, what we know is Sean Dyche can work wonders with this Burnley team. They consistently stay up. It was a disappointing season last year, finished in 17th. However, years before that, like the year prior to that, they finished 10th. Last year was an off year without the fans, which is certainly a big boost for Burnley. The fans back in the ground, I think they're going to go up again. They've got players that will score goals in Chris Wood. I like Dwight McNeil. Let's hope they can get a bit more money and Sean Dyche can actually be back like he's never really been. I think Burnley will do alright. 15th. Coming up in 14th, I have Newcastle United. And why is this? I think when they got their new coach, what was his name? Graham Jones, they took a massive step up in January. And what I believe Newcastle have, while they haven't signed anyone and they haven't sold anyone, they've got 2 players that are match winners and will win you a game. And that's Callum Wilson and Alan St-Maximin. With Callum Wilson, you have someone who, you give him a chance, he will score a goal. That is perfect. And with Alan St-Maximin, you have a player that can get the ball while defending and out of nothing create a chance. And when you have 2 players like that in your team, you are going to stay up because you're too good. Because St-Maximin will create chances for Callum Wilson and Callum Wilson will put them away. You look at teams, let's say, for example, Crystal Palace, you always wonder who is going to get the goal. Is it going to be Benteke? Is Jordan Ayew going to score? Is Zaha going to pull one out the bag? I don't think that you can say for a team like Palace, this man is definitely going to score. With Newcastle, I think you can with Callum Wilson. I always thought that with Bournemouth when Callum Wilson was there. I think Callum Wilson is someone you can rely on to score goals if you give him the chances. And I think that alone will keep Newcastle in the league and will keep them in the league for a long time. Do I think they play good football? No. Do I think Steve Bruce is a great manager? Not really. But, look, Callum Wilson will keep him up. And they are apparently rumoured to be signing Joe Willock permanently this year after what was a very successful loan last year. So, again, that'll be an improvement to the squad from what it is right now. But, of course, it'll be just kind of getting it back to what it was last season. But, like I said, Newcastle will finish 14th. And just above them will be Wolves. And similarly to Crystal Palace, Wolves are a complete unknown. They've got a new manager in Lage. That's probably not how you pronounce it. Is it Bruno Lage? Lage? But in him, we have an unknown. How good will he be able to adapt to the Premier League once again, like with Vieira? I think Wolves signing-wise, I haven't been too impressed. Trincao, yeah, he's quite good. They've just signed Ryan Aït-Nouri permanently after a loan last year. And then they sold Portugal's first choice goalkeeper in Rui Patricio for Jose Sá from Olympiacos, who didn't make their Euro 2020 squad. I find that a bit bizarre and confusing. And like I said, Wolves are unknown. How good is this league? Will he be able to adapt to the Premier League? Will he be able to get this Wolves team playing as well as we saw at times under Nuno, obviously, who's now gone to Spurs? There's so many question marks. Ruben Neves is rumoured to be maybe leaving the club. He's obviously a big player for them. There's so many question marks once again around Wolves. It's really impossible for me to rank them any higher. I think they have got a pretty good squad. It's just about how Bruno Lage can get the best out of them. Too many questions for me to put them any higher than 13th. Coming in at 12th is Brighton. Brighton, look, they've signed one player and that's Mpew. Again, I don't know how to pronounce it. From RB Salzburg, they've obviously sold Ben White, Proper and Matty Ryan. So they have money. They have money there from that Ben White sale to improve this squad. And I think the main problem Brighton had is a player that will consistently put the ball in the back of the net. I think Neil Maupay will be better this year. I think he had a massive off year last year. But they need someone who can consistently do it and you can bet on. Like I was saying for Newcastle and Callum Wilson, you give Callum Wilson a chance, he will score it. Neil Maupay, I don't have that same feeling. You need to get a proper striker. And I hope they do. If they don't, I think either way, 12th is achievable. They've created so much. I think XG had them in the top 5 this year. Maybe it might have been top 8. They did terrifically well last year. Performance-wise, they just weren't putting the ball in the back of the net and getting points on the board. This year, you'd imagine some of that unlucky streak from last year will maybe turn in their favour and they'll get a bit more luck than you'd expect normally from teams. So I do think Brighton will have a good year. And I think 12th is a very respectable mark for Graham Potter and his men. And I think this might be the last year for Graham Potter at Brighton. I think if they get a good 12th place finish, if someone in the top, one of the top teams sack their manager, for example, I don't think they should, but if Mikel Arteta gets sacked by Arsenal, maybe Arsenal go for a Graham Potter. Who knows? In 11th, I'm going to go for a return to form of West Ham. West Ham obviously finished in, 6th last season? Europa League football. However, I don't think they're going to do that this year. I think signings-wise, they've only signed Areola on loan. I think they're a worse team from the start of this season than they were last season. Obviously, they sold Haller. They don't really have any strikers. Obviously, Yarmolenko and Antonio can both play striker. Antonio is massively injury prone, and I think Yarmolenko is somewhat injury prone. So at some point this season, we may see West Ham without a striker. Obviously, lost Jesse Lingard, so that makes them worse. He was a crucial player for them at the end of last season. And it'll be interesting. Obviously, they sold Felipe Anderson for only £2 million. That's not a lot for a player that of his talent. For that price, I probably would have just kept him. And I think you can get more than £2 million worth of value from a Felipe Anderson. And I think what the big problem for West Ham will be this year is playing in Europe. I don't think they have a massive amounts of squad depth. I think that team, it's a decent first team, but not much more than that. I think they massively overachieved last year. And I see a return to form that partnered with a Europa League run. Look, I don't think West Ham fans will mind too much. A good journey in Europe, which I think they are very much capable of, and staying in the Premier League will be just fine for West Ham fans. And next year, then you can maybe try and start fighting for European football more often. I think their big concern is trying to keep Declan Rice. I think this year they will probably keep him, but if they don't get Europe next year, I think he will be gone. So it's a big season for West Ham. I think they'll finish 11th. West Ham proved me wrong. In 10th place, I'm going for Leeds United. I think they've done all right. They've obviously signed Junior Firpo and they made the Jack Harrison loan permanent. I like their signings. I think Junior Firpo could be a very good left back for them, obviously from Barcelona. Firpo's already spoke about how great it is to join Leeds and how apparently it's more in depth than what he was experiencing at Barcelona. Obviously, we know Marcelo Bielsa is a great coach and he knows how to get the best out of this Leeds team. I think we will see a drop-off in goals from a Patrick Bamford. But look, I think they're a great team. I think they're only going to get better as they spend more time with Marcelo Bielsa in the Premier League. 9th, Everton obviously lost Carlo Ancelotti. Rafa Benitez has come in. They've signed... Look, they've done all right. Damari Gray, Andros Townsend, Asmir Begovic. They're not terrible signings, but they're not anything to be like, wow. I don't think there's any real starters there. Maybe Townsend starts. I wouldn't imagine so. Obviously, Pickford will be their number one. Damari Gray won't play over Richarlison or James Rodriguez. Obviously, they sold Bernard to into the UAE. Look, I think Everton, they're a good team. I wonder how well Rafa Benitez will get this group of players playing. Look, if they play anywhere near like the level they did last year, they'll do all right. I don't think they're better than the 8 teams I've put in front of them, though. I think they're all right. I think they will start to lose some of their big stars. James Rodriguez has already kind of spoken out about how he came to Everton to play under Carlo Ancelotti, and now obviously that's no longer the case. So he may be looking for a move, maybe back to Real Madrid, maybe elsewhere in Europe. I wouldn't be surprised to see Everton have a drop-off. Rafa Benitez, look, if things start going bad for Everton and Rafa Benitez, the fans will let him know, because the fans didn't want Rafa Benitez in the first place. And that was the big issue with getting a Rafa from an Everton point of view. If it goes bad, the fans won't stick by him at all. So it has to go well, really, for Rafa. And I think they'll just about get by. So yeah, 9th. So in 8th, and my surprise... Well, my shock of the season, more like, really, I'm putting Spurs. I don't really rate Nuno that much. I think he had a fantastic Wolves team when he came up, and he got a lot of plaudits for doing so well with that Wolves team. But if you look at it, there was a lot of first-team Champions League level players, or players that had been playing Champions League for a lot of time. Players like Woody Bolly. Ruben Neves at the time was the youngest ever Champions League captain. João Moutinho was signed when they came up. Rui Patricio was the first team goalkeeper for Portugal. They had a fantastic team. So it wasn't that big of a surprise for me when they did really well when they got promoted. I heard when they signed Nuno that Daniel Levy said that he wanted to return to the attacking philosophy of the club. That's not Nuno's game. Nuno, at least at Wolves, was a very defensive coach, played a 5 at the back. I don't think he was great as a 4. Obviously, in pre-season, they've been playing as a 4 without Harry Kane. And I think Harry Kane leaving will be a big miss. Obviously, he's a player that will guarantee you goals. And without that, I don't know where Spurs will be. Obviously, they have humans on to play up top. They've signed fairly well. Christian Romero, I think, is a good signing. Galeni on loan from Atalanta as well. Could be a good goalkeeper for the years to come, especially if Hugo Lloris starts to fade and obviously needs to be taken out of the first team. Sales, obviously, they sold Lamela in a part deal for the youngster Bryan Gill. Toby Alderweireld has left, as has Danny Rose and Juan Foyth. And obviously, like I said, Harry Kane might be leaving. If Harry Kane does leave, big shoes to fill. They'll have a lot of money. But that's not always necessarily a good thing. I think if Man City do buy Harry Kane, Spurs should be looking to get a player in exchange. Maybe someone like a Laporte. Because I think it's really hard when everyone knows you have millions, hundreds of millions. It's hard to get good value. That's the problem Manchester United always have. Everyone knows Manchester United are minted. So you look at the Harry Maguire signing. Leicester was able to get 80 million out of us because they knew, look, if we want him this bad, we know you have money. Pay us what we want. And that's what they did. And I think that's what teams will do to Spurs if Spurs just get money outright. So I would say if you're selling Kane to Man City, get a Laporte. However, look, it's all up in the air. I think, look, Kane will miss the start of the season. I'm almost certain of that. He's hardly been in training. And I can see him disappointing this year. And I think the fans could quite easily get on Nuno's back quite quickly, especially if this defensive football continued. Because under Mourinho, they didn't like it, Spurs fans, but they accepted it because Mourinho was a winner. He was almost guaranteed to win him a trophy. He got him to a League Cup final. Under Nuno, that's not going to be the case. So it's a big season for Nuno and Spurs. So they're coming in 8th for me. And in 7th, I'm putting Aston Villa. Of course, they've lost Jack Grealish. However, I think they've signed really well. Emi Buendia, fantastic player. Danny Ings, top goal scorer. And similarly to what I was saying about Callum Wilson, you give Danny Ings a chance, he will probably put it in the back of the net. He's a reliable goal scorer. Leon Bailey from Bayer Leverkusen had a fantastic year for Bayer Leverkusen and looks like he will be a star for this Aston Villa team, especially when you have a player like Buendia who can just create, and his creative numbers are exceptional. They signed a bit of experience in Ashley Young, someone who's won Premier League titles, has won a Serie A title, has been there and done it, which is obviously fantastic. And has Ashley Young still got it a little bit? Maybe. And obviously they signed Axel Tuanzebe on loan. I think will be a very good centre-back. Whether he starts over an Ezri Konsa, I'm not sure. But I think he will be a good signing. Whether that is, like I said, to start over Ezri Konsa or just adds a bit of squad depth to that centre-back position. And look, with this Aston Villa team, I do think it's a really good team. You look at that team. I like Emi Martinez. He's fantastic. Matty Cash, for me, is a good right-back. Konsa, Tyrone Mings, and Tuanzebe, I think they're good centre-backs. I like Target at left-back. Midfield, Douglas Luiz I like. McGinn I like. Nakamba, I think is all right. Buendia, fantastic. Leon Bailey looks great. I like Ollie Watkins. Like I said, I like Danny Ings. And look, they still have more money. They got £100 million for Jack Grealish. I don't know how much of that money they spent on players like an Emi Buendia, a Danny Ings, a Leon Bailey. But I'm sure they still have a little bit of money left. They can go out and sign another star player. Obviously, they're interested in James Ward-Prowse. Aston Villa are in a very good position since they sold Jack Grealish. And while it's sad that Jack Grealish left, I think it's onwards and upwards for Aston Villa. And I really do like Dean Smith. I think he's a very good and underrated manager. So I think they're in for a very good season. So 7th. And then breaking in to the top 6, I have Arsenal. I think some of their signings have been quite smart. I think Ben White is a good centre-back. Maybe you've overpaid for him. Tavares looks like a good backup left-back. And Sambi Lokonga, I don't know much about him. But from what I've heard, he impressed in pre-season for Arsenal when he joined. And he was a very, very good player for Anderlecht last season. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on. They've sold David Luiz is left on a free. And both William Saliba and Matteo Guendouzi's gone out on loan to Marseille. And look, I do rate Arsenal. You look at what they did at the end of, after the turn of the year, they got the 4th most points. So they are a good team. What I would say about this Arsenal team, I just think they self-destruct too often, and that's their biggest problem. You look at some of their games, they can dominate the game, and then someone like a Granit Xhaka will go do a stupid pass, will give away a stupid foul, get a stupid red card, and the game changes like that. And then all of a sudden it's the manager's fault. There's a reason why this team has been on a decline since these players like Granit Xhaka has signed. They're not reliable. You cannot rely on them over a 38-game season. Same for me in Bernd Leno. I think Bernd Leno has a mistake in him far too often. I mean, that's the biggest problem with Arsenal. It's getting these players that have mistakes in them, no matter how good they can be on their day, out the club and getting players that you can rely on. And I think that is kind of part of the progress that is going on in players like Ben White. Yes, it's not the most desirable of players, but while you can't win league titles for me with players like Granit Xhaka, who we saw when Switzerland played France in the Euros, how great he can be, but too often it's a poor pass that gives away a goal, a red card, a penalty. You just can't do it. And like I said, I do rate Arteta. I don't think he's their problem. Like I said, 4th most points after January or after the turn of the year. He's a good manager and he did well for him last year after what was a difficult start to the season. I just think there's question marks to be asked about goal scorers. Look, Aubameyang on his day, fantastic. He was awful last year. Absolutely awful. And that obviously didn't help Arsenal. They didn't really have someone who was consistently putting the ball in the back of the net. Can you rely on Lacazette? I'm not sure. Aubameyang, look, he's the club captain. You have to hope this year he pulls his finger out and starts scoring some goals. I think Arsenal would have to take 6th. No Europa League as well. They could climb even higher than that. Then in 5th place, and for the what would be the 3rd time in a row, Leicester City. They've signed well in Daka, Bertrand, and Soumare from Lille. I just think the other top 4 teams are better than them. They're not a bad team. Obviously, they won the Community Shield against Manchester City. They look a good team. I just think the teams above them are better. I think they've done smart business again. I think look, they're solidifying themselves as a top 6 club, and that's all Leicester City fans should really and could really ask for. Brendan Rodgers is doing a great job. Maybe another cup win for them. I'm not sure. They're going to be missing Fofana for the whole of 2021, which obviously isn't ideal, but I think they'll get through it. I like Leicester. Like I keep saying, I just think the teams above them are better than them. So 5th for Leicester City. So top 4. First up, we have Chelsea. Now, Chelsea technically hasn't signed anyone already, well, as making this video, but Romelu Lukaku is pretty much done, and strong rumours are that Jules Koundé will also join. So 2 fantastic players, and they've not really sold anyone that big. Giroud's gone, Tomori's gone. Giroud never really played after Thomas Tuchel took over. He played once in a while. Tomori obviously was out on loan. Tammy Abraham never played. And Billy Gilmore, he's out on loan at Norwich further in his career. I think they're all good departures. Maybe I would keep Tammy Abraham. But if you can get good money for him, then maybe you do let him go. And look, I think Chelsea are a very good team. And I think the top 4 will all be very, very close. And I think the top 4 could quite easily be interchangeable. With Chelsea, I just have a feeling they'll come 5th. I like what they've done. I think Chelsea, like I said, will certainly be challenging. I think all the top four will be challenging for the Premier League title. I think the other three will just finish higher, I guess. I think Lukaku will solve their goal scoring woes. I still think sometimes performances aren't amazing. I think, obviously, I watched the Super Cup tonight. I didn't think they were great for a lot of that game against Villarreal. I thought Villarreal looked fairly comfortable. That's still something I think they have to improve upon. Obviously, they won the Champions League, so they're not a bad side. A fourth. And then in third place is my boys, Manchester United. I think they've signed really, really well. I think we are still missing a defensive midfielder, but Varane and Jadon Sancho are two deals you cannot turn your head up at. They are fantastic deals. Sales is just loans. Disappointing we haven't sold players like an Andreas Pereira, a Jesse Lingard, and bring in funds to finally sign a defensive midfielder. But I think signings we've done well. In the last 2 seasons, back-to-back top fours finishes for the first time since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. Not something to turn your nose up at. And look, I am confident for this season. I think Varane sorts out our defence and makes that defence one of the top defences in world football. A defensive midfielder is still crucial, and I think that's the reason that why we're in third. I think we still have time to get one, whether we will or not, I'm not sure. Jadon Sancho, obviously, I think that completes our front line. I think he's a creative player that will create goals out of nothing, can score goals as well. Something we've really been missing on that right-hand side. We've always had a striker that really play there in Mason Greenwood. In Jadon Sancho now we have someone who can score, but his main job is there to create. And like we saw kind of with Paul Pogba when he got put on the left-hand side, we're going to see that with Sancho on the right. I think he's fantastic. And I'm really happy. I'm really happy with the squad we've got. Like I said, a DM is needed. I think we've seen in pre-season, Matic can just about do it. Whether he can do it consistently over a 38-game season, we'll have to see. I wouldn't take that risk that I would be signing a defensive midfielder. And unless we do, the max I can see us finishing is third. If Liverpool and Man City are as strong as I believe they will be. But like I say, I could see any of the top four really competing for this Premier League title and potentially winning it. I just think Man United, if every team are at their best, I think we're probably the third best. So, who do I have top 2? Who is winning the Premier League? Well, I have Manchester City winning the Premier League, so Liverpool will come second. Konate, fantastic signing. We lost Wijnaldum on a free to PSG. Obviously, that's disappointing for Liverpool. But look, they've got plenty of good other midfielders. Konate will help fill the void in centre-half, meaning hopefully Fabinho will never have to drop back into centre-half. And look, they had a poor season last year, still finished third. They'll be back at it this year, I have no doubt. They have players like Salah and Mane who can score goals. Firmino, who knows. Fabinho back in defensive midfield is so crucial to them. With him back in there, I think they will instantly be better. Again, look, this Liverpool team, last year was a blip, wasn't it? They will be back to their best this season. Be scared and be worried about Liverpool. I certainly am, because they are a fantastic team. Jurgen Klopp is a fantastic manager. And while I don't think they'll be able to beat Man City to the title, I think they will be a very, very good and strong team this year after what was a disappointing season last year. And I think they will finish second in this Premier League title. The only issue might be for them is they're missing Andy Robertson for the start of the season. I think they'll be fine. Second place. And Man City obviously winning the league. Just signed £100 million Jack Grealish. Broke the British transfer record. The most expensive player ever signed for and by a Manchester club. An English club, sorry. And they look like they're going to get Harry Kane as well. How do you stop this Man City team if they sign Harry Kane? At the moment, the only problem I see with this Man City team is I worry where the goals will come from, but they create so much that they don't have to have world-class goal scorers and finishers in the club, because they're going to create about six clear-cut chances a game. All it takes is a Riyad Mahrez or a Raheem Sterling to get on the end of one of them and they'll win the game. Defensively, they look brilliant. What can you do? They've sold quite well. Aguero leaving on a free. when he's massively injury prone at this point in his career. Didn't play much last season, so he's good to get off the wage bill. Angelino never really did it at Manchester City. Jack Harrison obviously leaving for Leeds, and Eric Garcia leaving on a free. I didn't really rate Garcia, so I think Man City have done really well this transfer window. And look, they're just unbelievable. That squad depth they've got, and like I said, if they do sign Harry Kane, that's a striker that will get 40 plus goals a season in all comps. 20 plus in the Premier League alone. He will win Premier League titles for you if you are Manchester City. Do I think they will get Harry Kane? At this point, it's looking more likely no. But you never rule out Manchester City. They can always find some sponsorship money from somewhere, can't they? So I see Manchester City winning the Premier League. As much as it hurts me to say, Man City will win the Premier League. Right, before we end this video, let's go on to individual awards. Who is going to be Player of the Year? Young Player of the Year? Signing of the season, so on and so forth. So, Player of the Year for me will be from Manchester City. It will either be Kevin De Bruyne, Jack Grealish, or if they sign Harry Kane, Harry Kane. I think all of them, obviously, I think Man City are going to win the league. Jack Grealish being English, I think the media will love him. Kevin De Bruyne, obviously, he's won it back-to-back now, has he? Harry Kane should have won it last year if he's top goal scorer in a team that wins the Premier League. Yes, he's England's golden boy, isn't he, Harry Kane? So if Harry Kane plays for Manchester City, wins the league with them, top goal scorer, how is he not going to win Player of the Year? So for me, out of all them three are my choice. If I had to go with one, I'm going to go Jack Grealish. My young Player of the Year is going to be Jadon Sancho. I think he's going to light the Premier League alight. Fantastic player, isn't he? He's going to create so much. He's going to make Manchester United a better team. And we'll see how much we needed a right winger this year. Now we've got Jadon Sancho and we'll see his quality. I think we'll see the best out of players like Anthony Martial, Marcus Rashford, Wan-Bissaka because of him. He's that good. So my young Player of the Year will be Jadon Sancho. And my signing of the summer... Well, obviously, I've named two signings, Jadon Sancho and Jack Grealish, to be my young player and Player of the Year. I'm going to give the young Player of the Year the signing of the season in Jadon Sancho. I think when it comes to signing of the season, I think price definitely should play a part. And the Jack Grealish deal for £100 million compared to the Sancho deal for 73, I think the £73 million deal for Jadon Sancho is a better deal. So I think that, for me, is why I would give him signing of the season. Hey, quickly thing from the future. I forgot to do who I think will be top goal scorer and be top assister or top best provider. So I thought I'd just add my 2 cents in here. So, who is going to get top goal scorer? Obviously, your two favourites are, for me, are Harry Kane and if Chelsea do sign Romelu Lukaku. I'm going to go Harry Kane. You can't bet against Harry Kane being top goal scorer. And especially if he does get that move to Manchester City, which is so heavily linked and reported. How does he not get top goal scorer in a team that creates so much? So especially if Harry Kane gets his move to Manchester City, Harry Kane for me will be Premier League Golden Boot winner. And top provider... And look, this is, again, linking back to if Harry Kane does join Manchester City, Kevin De Bruyne. He's always up there, Kevin De Bruyne. Even last year when I didn't think they had a proper goal scorer or a striker. Obviously, Gundogan was top goal scorer for them in the Premier League last season. And he was still up there with one of the top assists in the Premier League. So with a Harry Kane, he is going to do that. So my top goal scorer is going to be Harry Kane. My top provider will be Mr. Kevin De Bruyne. Back to past me. Now going on to a slightly bad predictions. My flop of the season and my regrets of the season. Now my flop of the season is going to be Jamie Vardy. I didn't think he was great last season. And I don't think he'll be great this year, to be honest. I think we'll see players like Pasta Daka and Kelechi Iheanacho play a lot more minutes than you might be expecting. I think Jamie Vardy, this might be the year we start to see him fade in to a being a squad player and maybe soon to his retirement. I like Jamie Vardy, but I do think this year will probably be his last as a first team player. I think he will disappoint. My flop of the season, Jamie Vardy. And my regrets of the season, I've got a couple. So, my first one, Manchester United not getting a defensive midfielder. I think at some point in this season, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Manchester United will be there if we're not playing too well. Defensively, we're not great because of a defensive midfielder. We're going to be there like, right, we're going back to McTominay and Fred because we didn't sign a proper defensive midfielder, so we can't play Paul Pogba in that midfield again. And if we get to that point and we're not challenging because we refuse to sign a defensive midfielder, that would be shambolic. And I think that would be a massive, massive mistake. So if we don't sign a defensive midfielder, that will be my probably biggest regret being a Manchester United fan. I think from a City perspective, their biggest regret will be not signing a striker. I don't really rate Gabriel Jesus. And then that's really their only proper striker in the first team. I think they need a striker. If they get a Harry Kane, they will be top. And the same goes for West Ham. I think they've got 2 strikers in the books right now, and in Antonio, and if you want to count Yarmolenko, both are massively injury prone. You cannot rely on Mikel Antonio being fit every single game this Premier League season, especially considering you're going to also be playing Europa League football. They need to sign at least a backup striker, and whether they will do that or not, I'm not sure. But if they don't, I think that'll be a real regret because look, like I keep saying, you cannot rely on Mikel Antonio to be fit all season. And if Antonio does get injured, they don't have a Haller anymore. So what they're going to be putting, Ben Rama up top, or they're going to bring someone from the academy, or they're going to put Yarmolenko up top. Yarmolenko, he can play up top. He's a little bit injury prone. Jarrod Bowen, I guess, could play up top as well. But I think Bowen is a player you want to be starting out on the right. So you're moving a player out from your right wing. So you're weakening your right wing to play someone out of position. I think West Ham need to sign a striker to play second fiddle to Mikel Antonio. And I think a lot of strikers would be willing to do that. Maybe Antonio becomes a sub-striker. Whatever, they know they're going to get a lot of minutes because Antonio cannot stay fit. So I think West Ham do need to sign a striker. And my final regret of the season, I can see Liverpool regretting not replacing Wijnaldum. I think he's been so crucial to them over the last couple of years. And at the moment, they're looking at players like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita to step up to fill that void. There's a reason why they haven't filled the void up until now. They're both massively injury prone. I don't think you can rely on them. Again, I think Wijnaldum became so crucial to Liverpool. I find it bizarre they haven't tried to replace him. And I think at some point, especially if we do see Naby Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain both out with injuries, you can see that midfield maybe getting a little bit thin in places. They've got Harvey Elliott, who at times has played as a central midfielder, who can maybe do that job. Although I think you want him higher up the pitch. So I can see Liverpool regretting not replacing Gini Wijnaldum. Anyway, if you have enjoyed, please do hit that like button below. Subscribe if you are new and you haven't already. That would be greatly appreciated and would mean so much. Let me know your predictions down below and let me know what you made of my predictions down below. And like I said, once again, these are just my opinions. Don't get mad that I think your club might get relegated. I think your favourite player is going to be the flop of the season, so on and so forth. My opinions only. Like I said, I want to hear yours down below, so let me know yours. Anyway, that is going to be it. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you hit the like button. Like I said, subscribe if you are new and you haven't already. Make sure you go down in the description below. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. Go subscribe to my other channel. And join my Fantasy Premier League down in below. The link to that, again, is down below. Thank you all for watching. And Manchester City will win the Premier League title in a bit.